Hi YouTubers and roller skaters out there. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about something I just bought off eBay. So I just bought a vintage Rollerbones roller skate case. I hope to kind of refurbish it a bit and kind of renew some stuff that's falling apart, but at the same time not change it too much because I do like that vintage look, and that's kind of what gives things character. So it's a Rollerbones by Powell, also known as Powell Peralta. They're really popular in the 80s. They still sell stuff now. You may know them a little bit better as Bones. Bones Bearings, Bones Swiss, Bones Reds. This case has definitely seen some love. It's got a pretty good ding right here. On the sides too, you can just see that with the light. These corners on this case, they've been smashed in. This one's pretty bad. It doesn't exactly sit flush up and down. And here's the inside. This is all wood underneath the paper. The yarn things are everywhere. These are probably off someone's skate pom-poms at one time that happened to leave. Kind of a bummer I didn't realize before I bought it. You know, online you never know what you're getting. Is that you can see here there's kind of a break. So I'm hoping to be able to fix that. If you look, this is a knot down in here. It's just kind of a natural weakness, so it broke. And as you probably know, with vintage stuff, it's always kind of a hard choice between deciding should I just leave it original and not touch it how it is, or should I change things a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take out the liner, and then that will kind of give us a better idea how the wood's looking inside. This is kind of what's been coming out. This is the liner. It's just a paper. So taking that liner off was pretty much a pain in the butt. So what I first kind of tried to do was just using this hawkbill knife to take it off, which worked pretty good for the drier stuff. And also using a wet rag. If you wet the liner, it starts to peel off. But even still, it's pretty slow. And then my mom's like, hey, you should just steam it. That's how they take off wallpaper. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Anyway, so she picked up this Shark steamer. So you can see making smoke right there. I think she picked this up at the thrift store a while back for about 25 bucks. And so if you ever need to take wallpaper off something, get a steamer. I think it turned out pretty good. I didn't realize that the back of this, on the bottom and the top, this is actually cardboard, a thick kind of cardstock. I don't think it's super important to take all this off since it's just going to get covered anyway. Right here, this is where I originally put in that Bondo to fill up that big hole that was there. I've been sanding it down. It's turning out pretty nice. You can see with the epoxy job, and while using this 4-ton bottle jack, it's straightened out really well, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm glad I don't have to replace this. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get the fittings to stick back in. I'm gonna work through and sand all this on the inside to help us have a smoother place to work with when we're putting in the liner. I'm working on peeling off these old stickers, so I've just sprayed it with WD-40, which helps loosen up the adhesive. You want to be careful when taking stickers off. On this one I was using adhesive remover and it started to peel the paint, so I stopped doing that. Okay, we're gonna work on taking out this sticker with this pink hair dryer, courtesy of my sister. Another thing I've been working on is this hinge here. the lid wouldn't sit flush, and that's because this hinge was bent out. So I just took it off, and I'm gonna get some new rivets, bend this hinge back out and reuse it. These are called split rivets. That's what was holding the hinge in. They kind of act like a nail, and once you push them through the wood and the metal, you split the two prongs right there, and it holds everything together. Don't try to punch them through like I did, because that just tears up your wood and makes it look terrible. Take a drill to make a pilot hole through that's about the same size as the shank of the rivet, maybe a little smaller, and then push them through. So I just put in those split rivets and they turned out pretty good. I just use a punch and a hammer, and then I set it on top of a railroad tied with the rag over it so it wouldn't scratch the paint on this side. And then you just work each side down by tapping it down with the hammer. To line my box, I went out and bought a couple of feet of 1.5 inch high density foam, and I also bought some velveteen. This velveteen was about $20 a yard, so make sure you measure it super well because this stuff is expensive. Since we're running out of room, I decided just to use cardstock and wrap it with our velveteen on the sides. You want to take a piece of paper and cut it to size in there. Use a measuring tape or just trace it. You want to float it a little bit, give yourself a little bit room because that cloth's gonna make the length grow a bit. What I've been doing with the corners is when it's laying flat, I'll just cut it off at a 45 like this, and that way you'll get a nice wrap where it won't bunch up too much and there'll be a little bit of overlap. There's no glue on the underside of this cloth on the front, but there is on the wraps on the back. Okay, I'm working on just gluing on the sides. It's turning out pretty nice. You want to make sure not to put it too close to the top, because if you do and you squish it and it squishes out, then you get spillover like this and it looks awful. If you're gonna do sides like I did, you want to make sure and do the sides first and then measure on the inside, because this space is going to get a lot smaller given that you've added these two. So make sure and put in the sides and then measure and place this, or it's not going to fit. Measuring is pretty straightforward. I just took a tape measure and measured the inside of the box, and then I'm using an ink pen to get the right measurements for the bottom of the box. We're going to cut 2 of these, one for the lid and one for the base of the box. Here I've taken some cardstock and glued it on the back of our 1/2 inch foam. I floated these between about 1.5 inches and 1 3/4 inches. I've learned that hot glue is the best because you get a quick seal. Push up this foam when you glue it and when you wrap it, so it's kind of bumped up like this. If you put it down, you can see there's kind of a flex in it where it bounces back up. That's going to be really nice because when we do glue it into the top of the box and we seal down the edges really well, this like slop that's in the center, that's all going to go away. I'm going to put in the pad that I built earlier, and that's going to fit down nice and snug in here.